Go gentle with me. This is my first time, the maid whispered to the crippled billionaire. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma Brooks was sitting in a fancy New York City restaurant, the soft hum of conversations and the clinking of silverware around her. The lights were warm, casting a soft glow that made everything look perfect. But Emma, well, she felt out of place. Her reflection in the window only reminded her of the truth. She was a long way from the polished, elegant crowd around her. Her dress was second-hand, the hem barely stitched, and her shoes were worn from long shifts at the diner. She was nervous, her palms were clammy, and her heart was pounding. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would go through with this blind date. Jenny had convinced her, but now, sitting in the midst of wealth and refinement, Emma wasn't sure she belonged here. Table 7, she whispered to herself, her eyes darting around the room. The waiter led her through the restaurant, the elegant decor making her feel even more like an outsider. Her nerves were getting the best of her. She found the table, spotting a man sitting alone at the back of the room. He looked polished, his dark hair neatly styled, and his sharp suit screamed business. That has to be him, Emma thought. She took a deep breath and made her way over. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said with a bright, somewhat shaky smile. The man looked up, his eyes blinking in surprise. He was quiet for a moment, unsure how to respond. Hi?" "Emma, right," he said, his voice soft but warm. He glanced down at his phone, likely trying to make sense of the mix-up. Emma took the seat across from him, doing her best to mask her embarrassment. She laughed nervously, trying to break the awkwardness. "I know, this is awkward. Blind dates are weird. Right? Jenny told me you might be a little shy, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." The man, Kevin, she thought, opened his mouth to say something, but he hesitated. His business associate had just texted to cancel their meeting. He looked back at Emma and, for some reason, didn't correct her. There was something about her easygoing nature, her lack of pretense, that made him pause. "Yeah, blind dates are something else," he said with a faint smile. As the conversation started to flow, Emma found herself sharing stories about her struggles. She talked about working at the diner, trying to make ends meet, dreaming of one day opening her own art studio. She didn't realize how much she was saying until she noticed him laughing. It was the first time in ages that Emma felt heard. "You're not at all what I expected," she said, looking down at her water glass. "Jenny said you were kind of reserved." Kevin chuckled softly. "You're easy to talk to, too," he said. Emma smiled, her nerves easing a little. She was about to ask him more about his work when her phone buzzed. She checked the message. "Hey, Emma, where are you?" "I'm at table 7. Her heart sank. She looked up at Kevin, her cheeks burning. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kevin's smile faltered for a second. He glanced at her, his face full of mild surprise and, for a second, something else. "No, I'm not," he said softly. Embarrassed, Emma shot out of her seat, grabbing her coat and turning quickly to leave. "Wait," Kevin said, standing up, his voice gentle. "It's okay, really." But she was already halfway to the door. Kevin watched her go, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. Why did he care? Why did it matter to him that she ran off in embarrassment? He hadn't meant for things to get so awkward. He'd intended to correct her at the start, but now, something about her felt different, genuine, warm. For the first time in a long time, Kevin wasn't sure he wanted to let her go. It had been a few days since the mix-up at the restaurant, and Emma couldn't get Kevin out of her mind. She had tried to move on, telling herself that it was just a Small mistake, an awkward moment, but something about him lingered. He had been different, and that made her curious. Still, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she'd made a fool of herself. The more she thought about it, the more she realized how much she had opened up to him in that short amount of time, how easy it had been to talk to him, and how rare that felt. Emma wasn't used to that kind of connection, not with someone she barely knew. But deep down, she couldn't help but wonder if he was just another guy who would forget about her. After all, she was just a waitress, right? She didn't belong in his world. She had nothing to offer him. He probably wouldn't even remember her a week from now. Yet, the more she tried to ignore the thoughts, the more they crept in. Then, one afternoon, as she was wiping down the counter at the diner, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hi, Emma. It's Liam. I was the guy at the restaurant the other night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe." Her heart skipped a beat. Liam? He remembered her. He actually wanted to see her again. Emma stared at the message for a moment, her mind racing. She hadn't expected this. She thought he'd just brush the whole thing off, but instead, he was reaching out. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to reply. Should she say yes? Was it a mistake to meet him again? Could she risk the embarrassment of another awkward encounter? She took a deep breath, glancing at her reflection in the diner's window. Her clothes were nothing special, and she knew she didn't look like the type of woman someone like Liam would go for. But then again, he hadn't cared about that the other night, had he? He hadn't judged her for being nervous or for wearing second-hand clothes. He had just listened. And that, for Emma, was something she hadn't experienced in a long time. She tapped out a quick reply, "Coffee sounds nice." "Where?" Liam's response came quickly, "There's a small coffee shop on 3rd Avenue. It's quiet, so we can actually talk. See you at 3. Emma smiled to herself. For the first time in days, she felt a spark of hope. She wasn't sure where this would go, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like something worth pursuing. When she arrived at the coffee shop later that day, Liam was already sitting at a small table by the window, his dark hair tousled, wearing a simple grey sweater and jeans. He looked relaxed, much different from the polished man she had met at the restaurant. She felt a nervous flutter in her chest as she approached him. "Hi," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hi, Emma," he replied, standing up with a smile. "I'm glad you came." As she sat down, Emma noticed how easy it was to talk to him again. They talked about everything, how her day had been, the struggles of waiting tables, her dream of opening an art studio, and the frustrations that came with it. She laughed at herself more than once, and Liam listened, truly listened, without interrupting. He even told her a little about his work in tech, though he kept it vague. There was something refreshing about how open he was, even if he wasn't fully revealing everything about himself. "You're not what I expected either," Emma said with a laugh, remembering how she had thought he was shy. "You're actually easy to talk to." Liam smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're easy to talk to too," he replied. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at the sincerity in his voice. The more they talked, the more she realized how much she enjoyed being around him. It wasn't just about the words they exchanged, it was the way he made her feel. Comfortable. Seen. It was a feeling she hadn't had in years. As they finished their coffee, Liam looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "I'm really glad we met that night," he said. "Even if it was a mistake." Emma smiled, her heart pounding in her chest. "Me too," she said quietly. "It was nice to actually talk to someone for once. Someone who doesn't just see me as just a waitress." Liam leaned forward slightly, his voice soft. "I don't see you like that, Emma." "I never did." Emma felt a warmth spread through her, but it was tinged with uncertainty. She wanted to believe him, but she had been burned before. "But I'm not like the people you're used to," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't have a fancy job or fancy clothes. I can't offer you anything but me. Liam's gaze softened, and he reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. That's all I need, he said, his voice full of sincerity. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him, feeling something inside her shift. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just another awkward mistake. Maybe this was the start of something real. It had been a week since Emma and Liam met at the coffee shop, and things between them had already shifted. The awkwardness from their first meeting had melted away, replaced with an easy, effortless connection. They had continued to meet for coffee, and their conversations had grown deeper with each passing day. Emma was beginning to feel something she hadn't in a long time: hope. She had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for who she was, not for what she did for a living. She had always been the one giving, the one sacrificing, but with Liam, it felt different. He listened to her, supported her dreams, and made her feel like she mattered. He even showed up at the diner one afternoon, unexpectedly, just to sit with her for lunch. The moment he walked in, Emma's heart skipped a beat. He looked so out of place in the diner, his sharp suit and expensive watch a stark contrast to the greasy counter and mismatched booths, but he didn't care. He just wanted to be there with her. As they sat together, sharing a simple meal, Emma couldn't help but notice how natural it felt to be around him. He wasn't trying to impress her, he wasn't trying to be someone he wasn't. He was just Liam. So, tell me more about your art, Liam asked as they sipped their drinks. Emma smiled, feeling a familiar warmth spread through her chest. Well, it's something I've always loved. I've never had the time to really focus on it, though. Working here, paying bills, it's hard to find a moment for myself, she said, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I get that, Liam replied, his eyes softening. But you know, you deserve to make time for the things that make you happy. Life's too short not to do what you love. Emma's heart swelled. How many people had told her that? It was easy to say, but hard to live. She wasn't sure if she could ever take the leap, not with all the responsibilities she had. I want to open a small studio, she continued, somewhere I can teach people to paint. Maybe one day, I could even sell my work. But, I don't know. It feels like a pipe dream. Liam reached across the table and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. Emma, you're talented. I know it. You just need the right push. Maybe I can help with that. Emma's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? I'm serious. I know people. I can help you find a space, get your work in front of the right people. You deserve a chance. His words were unexpected, but they felt right. She had been dreaming of this for so long, but she never thought someone like Liam would believe in her enough to help make it happen. But I don't want you to feel like you have to, she said, pulling her hand back, suddenly feeling vulnerable. Emma, I want to. I see you. I see the passion you have for what you do. Don't sell yourself short. His words struck a chord deep inside her. She had spent so long doubting herself, feeling like she was never enough. But here was Liam, a man with so much to offer, telling her that she was worth something more. She felt a tear prick at the corner of her eye but quickly blinked it away. You really think I could do it? She asked, her voice small. Liam smiled warmly. I know you can. Over the next few weeks, things between them grew even closer. They began to spend more time together outside of their coffee dates, taking walks in the park, exploring local galleries, and even going to a few art shows. Emma started to feel like she was finally living her life, not just surviving it. Liam was there every step of the way, offering encouragement, advice, and, most importantly, his time. One day, as they walked through a quiet part of the city, Emma turned to him. Liam, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice trembling slightly. What is it? He asked, looking at her with concern. I'm scared, she admitted, her hands wringing the strap of her bag. I've never been good at trusting people, and I've always felt like I was just one step away from losing everything. But with you, it's different. I don't know what it is, but I'm scared that I'm not enough for you. Liam stopped walking, turning to face her. Emma, you don't have to be afraid, he said softly, lifting her chin with his finger. You are more than enough. You've always been enough. And I'm here for you, no matter what. The sincerity in his voice hit her like a wave, and for the first time, she felt like someone truly understood her. She closed her eyes, taking in his words, and when she opened them again, she found him looking at her with the most intense gaze she had ever seen. Liam, she whispered, her voice breaking. He leaned down, brushing his lips gently against hers, a soft, reassuring kiss that promised there would be no more doubts, no more fears. Just them. Together. As they pulled away, Liam smiled. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. She smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. This was it. This was the beginning of something real. Something she had always dreamed of but never thought she'd find. It had been a few more weeks since Emma and Liam had that conversation in the park, and things had only continued to get better. The more time they spent together, the more Emma began to realize how much Liam truly cared for her. He was always there, whether it was to support her dream of opening an art studio or simply to listen when she needed to talk. The moments they shared were slowly erasing the doubts and fears that had once clouded her heart. She was starting to believe that she was worthy of love, something she hadn't felt in years. One afternoon, as they sat in her tiny apartment after another one of their long talks, Emma felt the weight of everything shifting. It wasn't just about the art studio anymore. It wasn't just about finding herself or proving she was good enough. It was about Liam, about them. She didn't want to keep holding back, not anymore. Liam, she began, her voice softer than usual, there's something I need to tell you. Liam looked up from the sketchbook she had been showing him, his eyes filled with concern. What is it, Emma? I think I'm falling in love with you, she said quietly, her heart pounding in her chest. The words felt strange, but also right. She had never said them so easily before, not to anyone. She had been scared of love for so long, afraid of getting hurt, but with Liam, it felt different. Liam's eyes softened, and he reached out to take her hand in his. I think I'm falling in love with you too, Emma, he replied, his voice low and sincere. There was a moment of silence between them, the kind of silence that felt comforting, like everything was finally falling into place. Emma let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. It wasn't just her dream that was coming true, it was the dream of finally being loved for who she was. But even as they shared this tender moment, Emma's mind began to race. I'm not sure I can do this, Liam, she said, pulling her hand away. I don't know if I can be with someone like you. You're successful, you're rich, and I'm just me. A waitress, with nothing to offer but myself. Liam frowned, his brow furrowing with concern. Emma, you have so much to offer. You are everything I want. I don't care about what you do or don't do for a living. It's you, just you, that I care about. Emma shook her head, still unsure. But I don't fit into your world. You could have anyone you want, and Liam stood up, walking over to where she sat and gently lifting her chin so she was looking into his eyes. Stop thinking like that. You don't need to be anyone other than yourself. That's who I fell in love with. And that's who I want, always. I'm not going anywhere, Emma. Emma felt her heart flutter in her chest as he spoke, the sincerity in his words washing over her like a wave. She had spent so much of her life thinking that she wasn't enough, that she didn't deserve love or happiness, but here was Liam, telling her that she was everything to him. And for the first time, she believed it. She stood up, moving into his arms, and wrapped her arms around him tightly. I'm scared, she whispered, burying her face in his chest. I know, Liam said softly, his hand rubbing her back in slow, soothing circles. But you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. As she clung to him, Emma felt like the weight she had carried for so long was finally starting to lift. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. She was with someone who truly saw her, someone who loved her without any conditions, and it felt like a dream. Days turned into weeks, and with every passing moment, Emma's confidence grew. She started looking at her art in a new way, thinking that maybe, just maybe, it was time to take the next step toward opening that studio. And every time she looked at Liam, she was reminded of the love that had bloomed between them. They were different worlds, different people, but somehow, they had found each other in the most unexpected way. One evening, as they sat together in the cozy living room of her apartment, Liam looked at her with a smile. "So, what's the next step for you, Emma?" he asked, his voice full of encouragement. Emma smiled back, her heart full. "I think it's time to start looking for a space for the studio," she said, the excitement in her voice undeniable. "And maybe I'll even be able to teach others what I love. Maybe it's time to turn my dream into reality." Liam squeezed her hand gently. "I knew you could do it," he said, his pride in her evident. "You've always had this in you. I'm just here to support you." Emma's heart swelled with gratitude as she looked at him. He had always believed in her, even when she had trouble believing in herself. And now, she was ready to take that leap, to start the life she had always dreamed of. With Liam by her side, she knew anything was possible. The weeks following Emma's decision to take the next step toward her dream were filled with anticipation and excitement. She had started searching for the perfect space for her art studio, and with Liam's support, everything seemed possible. Liam had been by her side every step of the way, helping her navigate the challenges that came with starting something new. He was there for the tough moments, the doubts, and the fears, but he was also there for the victories, no matter how small. Together, they found a charming little space on a quiet street, a place that felt right from the moment Emma stepped inside. It had large windows that let in the sunlight, and the walls were perfect for hanging paintings. It was exactly what she had envisioned, and for the first time, Emma felt like she was truly moving forward. As they stood in the empty studio, Emma turned to Liam with tears in her eyes. "I can't believe this is happening," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Liam smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "I knew you could do it. You just needed to believe in yourself," he said softly, taking her hand in his. Emma squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch. She had come so far, and it was all because of him. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Liam pulled her into a hug, holding her close. "You've always had it in you, Emma. I just helped you see it." They spent the next few weeks getting the studio ready. Liam helped her with everything, painting the walls, picking out furniture, even finding local artists to collaborate with. He didn't just offer his time and resources, he offered his heart, showing Emma that she was worth the effort. And as the opening day of her art studio approached, Emma couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. Not just in her career, but in her heart. She had gone from a woman filled with doubt and uncertainty to someone who believed in her own worth. It wasn't just about the art anymore, it was about the life she had built for herself, the life she was living with Liam by her side. The night before the grand opening, Emma sat in the studio, looking around at the work they had done. It was finally ready. She felt a sense of accomplishment that went deeper than anything she had ever felt before. And as she sat there in the quiet, she realized that this was the moment she had been waiting for. It wasn't just a new chapter in her career, it was a new chapter in her life. A life filled with possibilities. The next day, the studio opened its doors, and Emma was amazed at how many people showed up. It wasn't just her friends and family, it was the community. People from all over had come to see what she had created, to support her in this new adventure. Liam stood beside her the entire time, holding her hand, and she could feel the warmth of his presence as a reminder that she was never alone. By the end of the night, Emma was overwhelmed with gratitude. She had done it. She had built something of her own, something that was meaningful and real. As they cleaned up the studio, Liam turned to her with a smile. "I'm proud of you, Emma," he said, his voice full of admiration. Emma smiled back, her heart full. "Thank you for believing in me," she said. "You made this possible." Liam leaned in and kissed her softly on the cheek. "You did it all on your own," he said, his voice full of love. Ema felt a rush of warmth in her chest. For so long, she had felt like she wasn't enough, like she didn't belong, but now, with Liam by her side, she knew she had everything she needed to be happy. They walked out of the studio together, hand in hand, and as they stood on the steps outside, looking up at the sky, Ema realized that this was just the beginning. There was so much more to come, more love, more laughter, and more dreams to chase. And no matter what happened, she knew she would never have to face it alone. The months passed, and Ema's art studio began to thrive in ways she never thought possible. She had poured her heart and soul into her dream, and with Liam by her side, it was becoming a reality. The studio wasn't just a place for her to create, it was a place where she could share her passion with others, teach aspiring artists, and inspire the community around her. Her days were filled with lessons, art shows, and conversations with people who admired her work. She even started to sell some of her pieces, and the satisfaction of knowing that others appreciated her art was a feeling she couldn't describe. Through it all, Liam continued to be her rock. He was there for every milestone, every success, and every challenge. Whether it was helping her set up for an art show or just being there to listen when she needed to vent, he was always present, and Ema began to feel like she was truly living the life she had always dreamed of. One evening, after a long day at the studio, Ema and Liam sat on the couch in her apartment, exhausted but happy. The soft glow of the lamps cast a warm light over the room, and the sounds of the city outside seemed distant, as though they were in their own little world. Ema leaned her head on Liam's shoulder, sighing contentedly. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. Liam kissed the top of her head, wrapping his arm around her. "You've done all the hard work, Ema. You've made this happen." Ema smiled, feeling the truth of his words. It wasn't just the studio that had changed, it was her whole life. She had gone from a waitress struggling to make ends meet to a successful artist who had built something from the ground up. And none of it would have been possible without Liam's belief in her. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied quietly. "You've always been there for me, even when I didn't believe in myself." Liam gently lifted her chin so she was looking into his eyes. "Ema, I've always believed in you," he said, his voice soft but firm. "You are capable of so much more than you know, and I'm just glad I could be here to see it all unfold." Ema's heart swelled as she looked at him. He had been the one constant in her life when everything else felt uncertain. He had shown her what it meant to love and to be loved, and she realized that she had found something far more valuable than success or recognition. She had found a person who truly cared for her, who saw her for who she was, and who would stand by her no matter what. Just as they were about to settle into the comfort of their quiet evening, Ema's phone buzzed on the table, interrupting the peaceful moment. She reached over to check the message, and her smile faded as she read it. "What's wrong?" Liam asked, sensing her sudden change in mood. Ema took a deep breath before replying, "It's the landlord. They've decided to sell the building." Liam raised an eyebrow, his concern deepening. "What does that mean for the studio?" Ema exhaled slowly. "It means I might have to move. The new owners may not want to keep the lease, and if they don't, I'll have to find a new space." She couldn't hide the worry in her voice. This was the last thing she needed. The thought of starting over again, of leaving the place she had worked so hard to build, made her feel like she was losing everything. Liam took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Ema, we'll figure this out. You've come this far, and I know you can handle anything that comes your way. We'll find a solution together." Ema looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can go through another setback. I don't know if I can handle starting over again." Liam smiled gently, his eyes full of warmth and support. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm here, every step of the way. We'll find a new place, we'll make it work. I believe in you, and I believe in this studio." Ema felt the weight of his words, and for the first time since receiving the message, she felt a small flicker of hope. It wasn't just about the studio, it was about the journey they had taken together, and the fact that, no matter what challenges they faced, they would face them as a team. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "You make everything seem possible." Liam leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Because with you, everything is possible," he said, his voice filled with certainty. Ema smiled as she rested her head back on his shoulder, the fear of losing everything slowly fading away. With Liam by her side, she knew she could take on whatever came next. Together, they had built something beautiful, and no matter what obstacles lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand. Weeks had passed since Ema received the devastating news about the building being sold, and though the uncertainty still lingered, things were beginning to settle down. With Liam's unwavering support, Ema had started looking at new spaces for her art studio. The thought of moving again was overwhelming, but Liam was always there, reassuring her with his calm presence and encouraging words. They had viewed several potential spaces, each one having its own set of challenges, but none that felt as right as the first one. Ema began to lose hope, wondering if she would ever find a place that felt like home for her art. It was then that Liam took her by surprise. One evening, after a particularly long day of searching, Liam invited Ema to dinner at a small restaurant downtown. "Let's just take a break from the studio for tonight," he said, a playful tone in his voice. Ema agreed, grateful for the distraction. They walked into the cozy restaurant, and Ema couldn't help but smile at the intimate atmosphere. The soft lighting, the quiet murmur of conversations, and the delicious smell of food made her feel at ease. As they settled into their seats, Liam took her hands in his. "I know this has been hard, but I want you to know how proud I am of you," he said, his voice steady but filled with warmth. Ema smiled, feeling a rush of emotions. "You've been so patient with me, Liam. I don't know how I'd have gotten through all of this without you." Liam leaned in, his gaze never leaving hers. "You've always been strong, Ema. You just needed someone to help you see it." Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She had never felt more seen, more understood, than she did in that moment. And yet, there was still a part of her that couldn't shake the worry. "But what if we can't find a place?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this dream I've worked so hard for just slips away?" Liam shook his head, his grip tightening around her hands. "It won't slip away. You're not alone in this, Ema. We're going to find a way. We'll make it work, no matter what it takes." Emma's eyes welled up with tears. She had never realized how much she needed to hear those words, how much she needed to feel like someone truly believed in her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Liam reached up to gently wipe a tear from her cheek. "You don't have to thank me, Ema. I'm here because I want to be. And I'm not going anywhere." As the evening went on, Ema found herself letting go of some of the fear that had been building up inside her. She realized that, even though there were obstacles ahead, she wasn't facing them alone. With Liam by her side, she could handle anything. The next few days were filled with more studio visits, but Ema had a new sense of clarity. It wasn't just about finding a space, it was about the journey she was on, the growth she had experienced, and the people who had helped her get to where she was. As she walked through a potential new location, a small but bright space on the corner of a bustling street, Ema felt something click inside her. This could be it. The walls were bare, but she could already see them filled with art, her art. There was enough room for classes, workshops, and exhibitions. And as she looked out the window, she saw the city in all its chaos and beauty, a reminder of how far she had come. She called Liam, her voice filled with excitement. "I think I found it," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "I think this is the one." Liam's voice was filled with joy and pride. "I knew you would. I'm so proud of you, Ema." Ema smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said, her voice full of gratitude. "You've been my rock through all of this." That night, as they stood together in the empty studio, Liam took her hand in his. "We're going to make this work," he said softly. "You've got everything you need right here." Emma looked around the room, her heart full of hope and excitement for the future. She had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't facing them alone. With Liam by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. Together, they would build something even more beautiful than she had ever imagined. Months had passed since Emma opened her new art studio, and with every passing day, her business flourished more than she could have ever imagined. The space that once felt so bare and empty was now filled with life, color, and creativity. She was finally living her dream. Her classes were packed, local artists were eager to collaborate, and her art was being displayed in local galleries. Every corner of the studio seemed to radiate the love and effort she had poured into it. Liam was still by her side, his support unwavering, but now there was something even more beautiful unfolding between them. They had found a rhythm in their relationship, a balance between their work and their personal lives. Liam had been busy with his own projects, but he made sure to spend time with Emma, whether it was helping her with the studio, sharing quiet dinners together, or simply enjoying each other's company on lazy weekends. Emma had never felt more at peace with her life. She had built something meaningful, and with Liam, she was building something even more precious: her future. One evening, as they sat together in the studio after a long day, Emma leaned back in her chair and looked around, taking in the sight of the space she had created. The walls were covered with vibrant paintings, some of her own and others by local artists she had met along the way. The shelves were lined with art supplies and books, and there was an easel near the window where she had just finished a new piece. It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. Liam, who had been quietly observing her, smiled softly. "It's incredible, Emma," he said, his voice full of admiration. "You've done all of this." Emma looked at him and smiled, feeling a swell of pride in her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, her voice full of gratitude. "You were the one who made me believe in myself." Liam reached over, gently taking her hand. "You always had it in you," he said, his voice tender. "I just reminded you." Emma squeezed his hand, her heart full. She knew that without Liam's belief in her, she might never have taken that first step. But now, as she looked at all she had accomplished, she realized that the real credit belonged to her. She had worked hard, faced her fears, and built something beautiful from the ground up. It was a moment of quiet triumph, and Emma couldn't help but feel like she had finally found the place she was always meant to be. As they sat there, the soft hum of the city outside blending with the calm atmosphere of the studio, Emma's mind drifted to the future. She had so much more she wanted to accomplish: more shows, more collaborations, more chances to inspire others. And now, with Liam by her side, she knew that anything was possible. Liam seemed to sense her thoughts. "What's next for you, Emma?" he asked, his voice full of curiosity. She smiled, looking at him with a gleam in her eye. "Next," she said, her tone playful. "Well, I think it's time for my first solo exhibition." Liam's eyes lit up with excitement. "I knew you were going to say that. I'll be there every step of the way." Emma's smile grew wider, knowing that, with Liam's support, she could take on anything. "Thank you, Liam. For everything." He leaned over, brushing his lips gently against hers. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly. "I'm just happy to be here with you, watching you shine." Emma's heart fluttered as they held each other, content in the quiet moment. Life had changed so much in the past year, and as she looked around the studio, she realized that it was just the beginning. She had found her passion, built her dream, and discovered a love that made everything possible. With Liam by her side, Emma knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, hand in hand. The next day, they started planning her exhibition. Emma spent hours curating her pieces, organizing the details, and preparing for the big event. With Liam's help, everything came together beautifully. The opening night arrived, and Emma stood in front of her work, feeling a wave of emotion wash over her. The room was filled with people, friends, family, and local art lovers who had come to support her. Liam was right by her side, his pride in her clear. "You did it, Emma," he said, his voice full of awe. She smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. "We did it," she corrected him, squeezing his hand. As the night went on, Ema received praise and admiration for her work, but the greatest reward of all was knowing that she had achieved something she had always dreamed of. With Liam by her side, she had created not only a studio, but a life filled with love, art, and endless possibilities. The future was bright, and Ema knew that together they would continue to create a beautiful life, one step at a time. Months passed after the exhibition, and Emma's life seemed to be falling into place in ways she had never imagined. Her studio was thriving, and her art was gaining recognition. People from different parts of the city, and even outside, were coming to her classes, eager to learn from her. Ema couldn't help but smile every time she saw a new student walk through the door, excited to take part in something that had once been a dream. The success she had found in her career was fulfilling, but it was the support of those closest to her, especially Liam, that made it all the more meaningful. Liam had always been there for her, through the long nights of setting up the studio, the uncertainty of starting something new, and the moments of doubt. He had become her anchor, the one person who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. They had continued to grow together, not just professionally but personally as well. Their relationship was stronger than ever, and Ema couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. As the holidays approached, Liam took her on a surprise weekend trip to the countryside, a place far removed from the hustle and bustle of the city. The fresh air, the peaceful surroundings, and the quiet charm of the small town allowed Ema to relax and reflect on everything she had accomplished. They spent the days hiking, enjoying the outdoors, and the evenings by a cozy fire, talking about everything and nothing. It was during one of those nights, as they sat by the fire, sipping wine and watching the flames dance, that Liam turned to her with a serious expression on his face. "Ema," he began, his voice soft, "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through." Ema raised an eyebrow, sensing the shift in his tone. "What do you mean?" she asked. Liam took a deep breath before continuing. "I've always known you were special, but over the past year, I've come to realize that I don't just want to be by your side as your partner in life. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emma's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, her mind racing. "What are you saying, Liam?" He smiled, taking her hand gently in his. "I'm asking you to marry me, Ema." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, Ema felt like the world had stopped. Her heart was pounding in her chest as she processed what he had just said. She had always dreamed of a love like this, a love that was patient, kind, and full of support, but to have it in front of her, to have Liam, the man who had helped her build her dreams and shared in her journey, ask her to be his forever, it was everything. "Liam, are you serious?" she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I love you, Ema. I want to spend every moment with you, building our future together." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she took in his words. The man she had come to rely on, the one who had stood by her when everything felt uncertain, was now asking her to be with him for the rest of their lives. She had never felt more certain of anything in that moment. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with joy. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam's face lit up with the biggest smile she had ever seen, and he immediately pulled her into a tight embrace. "You have made me the happiest man alive," he whispered, his voice full of love. Ema felt the same way. She had found everything she had ever wanted in Liam: love, support, and a future filled with endless possibilities. The next day, they returned to the city, and Emma's heart was full. As she looked around at the life she had built with Liam by her side, she knew that this was just the beginning. They had faced so many challenges together, and now, they were ready for the next chapter of their journey. Emma's art studio continued to thrive, and together, she and Liam started planning their wedding. It was a simple affair, just close family and friends, but to Ema, it was everything. On their wedding day, as they stood in front of each other, exchanging vows, Ema realized that this was the greatest piece of art she had ever created, not just her studio, not just her paintings, but the life they had built together. It was the most beautiful masterpiece of all. As they kissed, the room filled with applause, but Emma didn't hear it. All she could hear was the steady beat of her heart, knowing that this was where she was always meant to be, with Liam, forever. Together, they would continue to build the life of their dreams, hand in hand, with love and support guiding them every step of the way.